Welcome to Arkansas Wildlife. Happy Memorial Day weekend. Although Memorial Day is a time when we honor fallen soldiers, those who gave the ultimate sacrifice for our country, this week on Arkansas Wildlife, we're going to look at some programs that are helping veterans across the country. We'll share the story this week of Son Tao, an incredible story about a refugee of the Vietnam War who came to America, joined the U.S. Army after the September 11th terror attacks, and has used fly tying and fly fishing to exorcise the demons of post-traumatic stress disorder. But first, we're headed to the Little Red River to see how the Arkansas Freedom Fund is helping veterans by exposing them to the joys of the great outdoors.
It's a big stress reliever. You kind of forget about the problems and stuff you can have at home in the world, and the only thing that exists is you and that rod and that fish at that moment. It's real calm and soothing.
Oh, it's absolutely a therapy. It's getting back to something I love doing, you know. I mean, it's spiritual being out here for me. I don't have to catch fish, I can just be outside. But, you know, it's always better to catch fish.
All that and this week's winner of an Arkansas hunting and fishing license right after this break. Arkansas Wildlife is brought to you in part by Academy Sports and Outdoors. For all, for less. The Little Red River's cool waters are known far and wide for their incredible trout fishing. But these waters also have the power to heal. For the men and women of the U.S. Armed Forces, returning home often presents its share of challenges. The Arkansas Freedom Fund is helping veterans overcome those obstacles through the simple pleasure of the great outdoors.
They don't get an opportunity themselves to go out, or they're always by themselves, and they can't get out to do the things that they want to do outdoors.
There you go. Stay on.
There he is.
I got Joe. Stop reeling. Stop reeling.
There we go. There we go.
The Arkansas Freedom Fund is a nonprofit organization dedicated to restoring the mental and physical well-being of Arkansas veterans. For the past few years, the group has been trying to meet that goal through an annual trout fishing trip on the Little Red River. With the help of the Heber Springs United Methodist Men's Group, as well as a host of Little Red River fishing guides, the Freedom Fund is helping veterans distance themselves from their struggles by getting closer to nature.
They talk, they communicate, they feel the camaraderie, they enjoy the activity. It then builds them up to where they want to come and do another event, so they get, again, to have fun, to talk about their issues, their struggles, dealings they have with VA or hospitals, what works for them in recovery, what doesn't work for them, and then to get out and experience Arkansas. This is a great state to do this in. The freedom, the serenity, the water, the camaraderie, it lifts these guys' spirits up. They just enjoy it so much.
I think it helps the healing process tremendously, because I do work at the VA, and I do work with some of the veterans that are out here today, and they've really enjoyed it. It's really helped them tremendously.
Oh, it's absolutely a therapy. It's getting back to something I love doing, you know. I mean, it's spiritual being out here for me. I don't have to catch fish, I can just be outside. But, you know, it's always better to catch fish. But I don't know, it just gets me back in touch with nature, and fellowshipping with other vets is always good. I mean, there's a bond with us. It doesn't matter if you're in the Marines, Army, Navy. When we were in, we might have fought, but now that you're out, you know, we're all brothers and sisters. And it doesn't matter if you served with somebody, you just have that automatic bond of being in the service.
It's a big stress reliever. You kind of forget about the problems and stuff you can have at home in the world, and the only thing that exists is you and that rod and that fish at that moment. It's real calm and soothing.
fresh Arkansas air, the soothing ripple of the Little Red River, the pull of a sturdy trout, and the common bond of military service.
These guys, when they go out and they do these things, the laughter in their voice, the feelings that they get, that's what makes it all worthwhile.
You know, for a while, once I got back home, it's like I didn't want to do anything. Sit there and look at the TV, and doing this make you want to get back out and do stuff again.
Disabled veterans in Arkansas soon will have a new option for obtaining lifetime hunting and fishing privileges. In addition to the current $1.50 resident disabled military veteran lifetime fishing and hunting licenses, disabled vets will be able to purchase a $52.50 resident disabled veterans license, which includes a combination hunting and fishing license along with lifetime Arkansas duck stamps and trout permits. The new license also reduces the threshold from 100% disability to 70%. It will be available in late July.
All you do is basically tie it in and then wrap.
Compared to many of the featured fly tyers at the annual Sowbug Roundup, Son Tao isn't the most experienced behind the vise. But even though he's only been tying for 2 years, he has quickly gained a reputation as an expert craftsman.
A lot of it has to do with the background, where I started off as an artist when I was in high school, but in the 90s, art didn't pay the bills, so my parents made sure that I chose a different major when I went to college. So I took up electrical engineering, and then I worked at RCA. Between the art and working with the engineering background, it makes fly tying a little bit easier because I could see a fly and I reverse engineer the fly right in my brain. It also helps I see 20/10. Tying on, size 18, 20 hooks, not difficult because I don't need any magnifiers.
It doesn't hurt that he's an unabashed perfectionist.
If I tie on something and I didn't do it exactly the way it should be done, I just undo it and I redo it until I get it right.
Tao's precision at the vise has earned him numerous industry sponsorships and nearly 14,000 Instagram followers. But fly tying has done much more than that for Tao.
I can honestly say that it probably saved my marriage and my life, because at the path that I was going down, it was going to lead to nothing but destruction.
A master sergeant in the U.S. Army, Tao has been deployed 6 times to combat zones. He has received 2 Purple Hearts for combat injuries that resulted in 11 surgeries on his legs and back. 3 years ago, while stationed in Hawaii, post-traumatic stress disorder caught up with him.
Over the course of each deployment, you end up having a lot of basically demons and so that builds up inside of you. Me having all these deployments under my belt, I had a lot of problems sleeping and a lot of anxiety issues, and the tying helped me refocus my brain into the aspect of wrapping thread and materials versus thinking about other silly stuff. And ever since I started doing that, I've been able to sleep much better. I've been a much easier going person, friendlier person, and better husband, better father.
Tao is no stranger to overcoming life's challenges. Born in Vietnam in 1974, Tao and his family fled the country amid the turmoil of the conflict's final days.
My father was an officer in the South Vietnamese Army, so he was being hunted down with all the other South Vietnamese military personnel. And we escaped to Malaysia, and we stayed on a refugee camp there, Pulau Badong, which is a little island off the coast of Malaysia, for almost 2 years. And during that time there, my parents were trying to find political asylum in other countries that we had family at, and they all said no, but the U.S. said yes. And through the help of a Mennonite family, we ended up emigrating to the United States. First started off in California and then moved closer to that family that helped us out in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. Lived the dream, went to high school, graduated from high school, went to college, graduated from college, got a cushy job, able to do whatever I wanted being single and had no bills.
But that all changed on September 11th, 2001.
The World Trade Center, Tower number 1 is on fire. The whole outside of the building, there was just a huge explosion. Send every available ambulance, everything you got to the World Trade Center now.
And my father called me up and said, hey, you need to go join the Army. I was like, what? And he's like, you need to pay back our family's debt to the United States for allowing us to come here, and you're the oldest, so it's your obligation to pay back the family debt. So You know, in my culture, your parents tell you to do something, you don't tell them no or argue against it. So I went to work and submitted my letter of resignation, and they all thought that I was on drugs or something, but I ended up leaving RCA and enlisted in the Army, and the recruiter asked me what you wanted to do. I was like, well, if I'm going to join the Army, take me where the fight's at.
Based on his armed services aptitude test, Tao had his choice of Army jobs. He chose infantry.
They tried to get me nuclear engineering and linguist and all these other high-speed stuff, and I was like, no, put me where the fight's at. And I enlisted in the infantry. And so, right off the bat, deployed right away off over to Afghanistan, Iraq, and it was like back to back to back, and 17 years later, still in.
Tao is at peace these days. When he isn't training young soldiers, he spends his days raising a family, fishing every chance he gets, and tying impeccable flies at a feverish pace. But reaching this point in his life hasn't been easy. Son Tao found fly fishing and fly tying somewhat by accident, but it helped him crawl out of the depths of despair that came after multiple overseas deployments for combat duty.
About 3 years ago, I was stationed in Hawaii, and I've deployed 6 times because I'm active duty Army. And it being in infantry, we're always in the front line where all the battles are. And I've seen a lot of my own soldiers get killed or injured. And myself, I'm a Purple Heart recipient where I've been shot at and have been blown up. So I was going through a lot of my own healing myself with numerous surgeries. Being at the rank that I am, I don't have the luxury of basically breaking down and saying, woe is me. I had soldiers I had to take care of. So always basically putting all my own personal problems hidden inside of me and taking care of all of my soldiers that were undergoing the same stressors and the PTSD and injuries and mourning loss of their own friends and whatnot. So I had to take care of them all the time. And then as things were winding down and my time in Hawaii was coming to an end, I had about a month left and I was on assignment to come to Indiana. I had more time on my hand, and that's when the realization of all my issues started kicking in. I was drinking real heavily. To make a long story short, I was at a bar, VFW in Hawaii, and there was this Korean vet that had seen me come in there over and over again, and I was basically drinking myself silly. And he kept coming to talk to me, and I just blew him off all the time, and then he brought up the subject of fishing. And that caught my interest because I fished a lot as a kid. He made me wait there at the bar, ran back home, brought the vise, clamped it to the bar itself, and started showing me tying. I was intrigued.
After transferring to a new duty station in Indianapolis, Tao attended an outdoor show and hooked up with the veteran support group Project Healing Waters. He was introduced to a local fly shop that gave him a tying vise and materials, as well as a book that inadvertently speeded his development as a fly tyer.
And then I saw this fly in there. It's called the ginger quill that I was in love with. It was just a beautiful fly with the natural materials, the peacock quill and the mallard duck wings and the whole 9 yards. So I wanted to tie that fly. Went back to the fly shop and got all the materials that were on the list, and didn't realize at that time that was not a beginner fly by any stretch, because the mallard quill wings is one of the most difficult things to do, but I didn't know. So I felt that I need to learn how to tie this fly. And I ended up buying every single set of duck quills that they had by the time I finally got that fly right. And I ended up tying probably about 50 to 60 of them. Knowing what I know now, that tying that first fly until I got it exactly right actually set me up for everything else afterwards, because every other fly that I ended up tying afterwards was drastically easier. So it worked out in the long run, but it was not, I do not recommend any of those Catskill patterns as a first beginner fly.
Just 2 years later, Tao is making a name for himself as one of the top fly tyers in the country.
It blew up into this huge social media beast that has completely taken me by surprise.
Tao was initially reluctant to talk about his story, but his higher profile has given him a platform to talk about the healing power of fishing and fly tying.
It has brought me a tremendous amount of inner peace, and I know there are a lot of others out there that could use the same help. I can't stress just the importance of organizations like Healing Waters, Warriors, and Quiet Waters, and fly fishing in general. It's just being out here and listening to the water and the birds and catching fish, and you forget everything else.
Tao spends his days molding young people into responsible adults and professional soldiers. And now he wants to use his free time to share his passion for fishing in the hope that it can help others.
Help others, educate others, teach others is one of the, like I said before, one of the big things that I love to do. And now it's a different avenue of me teaching and helping somebody else that is struggling with either military side with depression, with alcoholism, with PTSD, or somebody that has nothing to do with the military but just want to get into tying and they don't know how or what to do. It basically has become my only hobby that I have, and I love it. It's helping others, and there's no other way that I would prefer to spend my free time besides my kids and my wife than just doing what I love to do.
Arkansas Wildlife presents the Watch and Win Giveaway. During each episode of Arkansas Wildlife, we'll give away an Arkansas resident hunting and fishing license. At the end of this season, we'll be giving away $500 worth of fishing gear with everything you need for outdoor adventures on Arkansas lakes and streams. It's all provided by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Visit the Arkansas Wildlife webpage at arkansaswildlife.com and click on the Watch and Win icon to enter. This week's winner is Larry Sanders from Benton. Congratulations, and thanks for watching.